Welcome back, everyone, to our latest week of the Quake Pro League. My name's Ketchup, joined by Flea, and we are going to continue our America's Marathon. So our next matchup is going to be dooi versus nosfa. We mentioned before the break a definite clash of styles. dooi, a lot more of a kind of reserved player because that's just the way he, has always approached the game. And then nosfa, who is a bit more aggressive, a bit more of the flash. So when these two players go head to head, I'm just curious to see who comes out on top. Honestly, it could definitely be a 2-1 here.
Oh, absolutely. This is most likely going to be a pretty close game because on the one hand, you've got nosfa, right? nosfa is a brawler. We know it. You see it in his personality in real life and on stage as well. The man is he's out there. He just is looking for the fight, wants to do the damage, constantly apply the pressure. Whereas on the other hand, dooi is the complete opposite. He is a man who will play as passively and reactively as he needs to be, and he's perfectly fine just winning by a one-frag game.
So we'll take a look at the picks and bans when we can. We'll find out what the journey's going to be because sometimes the champion picks are very much a reflection of the play style. And taking a look at dooi, it's a little bit different this time because we do get to see the Ranger removed, actually, which is not a bad shout versus dooi. Someone who is reserved like dooi, that burst potential in the blink of an eye can be quite annoying, but it's going to be Athena versus the Slash, I believe. We'll check out the Corrupted Keep and then the Awoken. What I'm seeing in the lobby is a bit different. I'm just thinking out loud. I think they are now going in with their actual picks. So the players in the lobby picking the different champions really messed with me for a second, but it's going to be Blood Covenant with the Athena and Slash.
Gonna see a repeat from what we saw earlier in the Rafa game, of course. Slash versus Athena. Last time around, it was the Slash who won convincingly, but of course, this might be an entirely different story. That on Corrupted Keep, we're going to see the Straw go up against the Sword, like medium champion versus a heavy one, both with quite a bit of speed and mobility, and then the final one will be Awoken, where we are going to see the Anarchy go up against the Nyx. So no new maps being picked this time around. Lots of fast champions. Two of our matches are only fast and lights going up against each other, so this should be a pretty spicy game.
Looks like the players are ready already because we are actually already loading into the first map. So Slash and Athena, we just saw that with Rafa and Effortless. It was one-sided affair for Rafa, but it tends to be when Rafa fights people in Pro League. But if I were to, I guess for the first time today, we have a kind of less predictable result, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I can now ask you for a proper prediction. Who do you think is going to take this and why?
This is a close one. Last time they played was in the Quake World Championship, so the Stage 4 finals, and it was nosfa who won 2-0. So if you go by that, looks like the Brazilian might have his edge. dooi hasn't had the best of success just yet in this stage of the Quake Pro League, so I don't know. Also, interesting to note, though, there was a bit of an exchange on Twitter about dooi studying nosfa's VOD. So I might be inclined to say that dooi at least has the planning advantage this time around.
Because of all the preparation involved, I am going to go in the opposite direction and say I'd like to see dooi take this. A 2-1, I think, is a fair to expect result between these two players. But we'll see if doi's preparation pays off as we start things off by checking out his point of view already with the railgun side. And nosfa with no armor to his name just yet, which makes these kind of situations a bit more risky. Did not take the Mega immediately, though, so is going to be, I would say, a delay between. But both players had a similar idea of not soaking up immediately. And now only 5 seconds separates these two items. dooi waiting until he knows he's safely far away, I think, before he takes the LG. He didn't want to give his position away.
dooi is so good at finding these sneaky little angles, right? Like jumping up in the blood pool and then just hoping to catch the feet of your opponent jumping across to the rail. Very nicely timed, but missed the shot in the end. And now dooi setting up on Mega this time around. Players have switched positions. The one thing that dooi is missing right now is the rockets. And nosfa, I don't think he knows. I don't think he really knows that he can still deny this weapon. But he does have a bit of an advantage right there. If it does get to a close quarters brawl, dooi is definitely outmatched.
This is a classic dooi move, and it always tends to be on Blood Covenant. So many ways where he can just be nice and hidden, make his position not known, because it's all about in these situations, right? It sets up those awkward rails or those shots that you kind of just get for free, really. And then it allows dooi to either push in or control certain items. That's why we said clash of styles. nosfa is being very respectful of this. And he's not going in for the chase just yet.
So props to Dooi for sticking with the consistent color scheme on his weapons. The bright neon green.
If it's not green, he ain't interested. I'm just glad that it tends to be the weapons now and not his actual model. So it's not really easy to see. He matches up with the heavy, though.
Yeah, indeed it does. Dooi securing the heavy this time around. Slow game for two fast champions. Very different compared to what we saw earlier when it was rapid versus effortless, and we saw almost 3 frags in the first half a minute. So completely different pace this time around.
No significant damage in one go dealt though that allows either player to make chase, put on one of those big pushes. That rail might definitely spell other things. Heavy's been soaked up, but he knows what stack roughly nosfa's going to be working with. The Mega, hang on a minute, big push in the mid-air, looks for the flick rail, doesn't quite land it, both players weak, but Dooi a bit weaker. He stopped bleeding a little bit with the light armor, but it wasn't enough to stop nosfa from the big push.
Yeah, I don't think Dooi was entirely prepared for nosfa to push in that aggressively, and so while he still had the rockets out, his opponent was dropping down from above. And of course, rockets don't help you very much in those situations. And nosfa, with a positional advantage, made a really nice push happen. But it's Dooi who secures the Mega. Can't quite land the flick. You just know that if Dooi would have landed that shot, he probably would have dropped down, knowing that nosfa doesn't have all the weapons he wants yet and would have been severely outstacked.
Now, rail, this fight's going to be most interesting. Pushes in with the shotgun, but without a rail, simply just gave up. And another click! 2 clicks in a row, flicking to the rail with no success. And this is actually quite scary. nosfa has nothing. He has a starting machine gun, and that is it.
Somehow managed to steal away the Mega, though. Okay! Right to the dome as Dooi extends the lead. 2-1 now. Just looking good for Dooi, the American player. Can he still get out alive? He cannot. nosfa a bit too fast with the grapple hook. Catches him off guard. Gets away with heavy though. It's gonna help Dooi out quite nicely. He should be able to secure the Mega as well. Divs dodge and dives in between the rocket. Can he escape? Oh, nosfa. I don't know about that one. If you can die to a shotgun from that distance, dropping onto an opponent who looks like he'll beat you to the item, that's a risky play.
And the amount of machine gun damage dealt to nosfa as well just makes things very scary indeed. Considering the fact that nosfa's not quite able to return with those rails, Dooi continues to have a high stack advantage. It's light versus light, and they have the same weakness in terms of getting caught off guard, pressure off spawn, but hang on a minute, nosfa gets 2 rails, never mind. And he gets the Mega. Those 2 rails have swinged momentum in his favor. Can he make something happen with it? That is the question, because we go into the 5-minute warning. Dooi, he's just looking for information right now. If he gets the rail angle, all the better, but that one being unreturned. A nice start. Both players missed their initial rail. Dooi going to be hard to hit, and he will be. As the heavy becomes the next plan. Heavy machine gun. I think he's really onto the fact that nosfa is not hitting a ton of these rails.
Dooi definitely cycling the items for the time being. He is the one who has the advantage in that department. Clearly picking up more of them than nosfa has. Also dealing most of the damage for the time being. He wants more frags though, but of course this is Dooi we're talking about, right? He is content finishing it with this 2 frag lead. He knows he doesn't have to push anymore, and if he can continue cycling the items, and every time they meet up, Dooi ends up doing that tiny little bit of damage more, just to send nosfa back, he can ride this out till the end.
Dooi wasn't 100% sure about taking that shot, even though nosfa did miss the rail. We're talking about control. Dooi's had a substantial amount of heavies, actually. nosfa's only been able to pick up 3 of them. Which have been quite tricky, I think, for if Dooi's able to constantly hit these shots. nosfa making chase, but Dooi hits the magic shot that he needs. That was a lifesaver, Flea.
That was a beauty indeed. If he would have missed that shot, that should have absolutely been nosfa frag. Oh, I love the grapple coming out right there. Nosfa using the grapple as a weapon, slamming himself into his opponent, knocking him back, and throwing off Dewey's aim slightly. Now the next weapon will be the heavy. Dewey, switching to his famously passive style, doesn't even want to go for it. He doesn't have the weapons, he doesn't have the armor, and he's just going to concede that item, leave it up for nosfa, and instead try and focus on getting himself armed. He still needs the rail, he still needs the rockets, but he heard the bounce pad. He knows that it's not safe to collect that final weapon that he still needs. And nosfa somehow, tiny bit of rocket damage, and then the rail on the bounce pad will be all she wrote.
He's opening himself up for an absolute comeback potential, especially considering the fact that he's nice and healthy. Plenty of rails to work with too. I think those shots easier said than done against these fights. Jin taking that heavy should have sealed his fate, and it will. nosfa's timing just on point. He walked into a whole bunch of tri-bolt that definitely looks like it took him by surprise there, Flea.
I don't know why he peeked after taking the first set of tri-bolts to the face right there. Should have just left right away. Perhaps was counting on Dewey not to shoot once more. And now things are all tied up. 5-5. nosfa has to make do with scraps. He cannot contest for heavy just yet. Mega isn't up for another 10 seconds, and he knows that Dewey has got the timing, doesn't want to be anywhere near his opponent, and just wants to play his own game. He's looking to avoid Dewey, pick up maybe another small armor, a health bubble. Oh, messes up the zip. And now he's hiding. He knows that Dewey heard that. Where is the American, he thinks to himself. Can I go up and secure that small armor? Because that's the prize he still wants. Good rail. That's gonna help him.
Looking very much like we could go into an overtime at this rate. However, Dewey, although he was in a bit of a weird situation, you never like getting caught near heavy when there's a potential for a fight, because there's just nowhere to escape to. The fact that Dewey had the larger stack, that really is what allowed him to escape. And nosfa thinks, I'm not going to really mess with that in case it goes wrong. Keeping the stack advantage. He is playing for the potential overtime here, but the rockets are insane! Dewey coming out of nowhere, 3 in a row! Oh no, we're just talking about nosfa potentially playing the long game, and here comes Dewey, full speed ahead.
You know nosfa is not happy about that one. Flying around the corner, actually reading Dewey perfectly, setting up on the weapon that he knows his opponent is pining for, and then the rocket around the corner to the face, immediately into the follow-up. And that is what allows Dewey to now get himself one up with half a minute left on the clock.
This is scary now.
Yeah.
The heavy
Dewey's
is
got
10
both the
seconds away from spawning. What does nosfa do for stack? There's very little to work with. And even if Dewey wants to take the fight, he'll take an angle, he'll take a fight if he has it here. And this should steal his fate if he can get one final shot, but guess what? He doesn't need to. Keep nosfa behind, play the game of running, 10 seconds to wait. nosfa, it'll be a miracle if he gets the frag here, because this by all means will be the map. If nosfa doesn't find him right now, he finds him, but it's not enough. Dewey's already out of there. The defensive play works out, and it'll be Dewey taking that first map, but in kind of the fashion we expected, which was the immediate shift of gear, where it was time to play reserved and patient. Dewey did just that, but he wasn't doing it at the expense of just letting nosfa take things. He was making sure he was keeping nosfa behind at the same time, which you love to see from defensive play.
And I mean, the moment that Dewey got to that final frag that he needed, he was just in such a good situation too. First heavy, and then immediately afterwards the mega as well. So even though nosfa had half a minute left to work with, he was weak in comparison to his opponent, whereas Dewey could just sit comfortably. He still made a move onto the heavy, did a good amount of defensive damage, and you could clearly see nosfa contemplating whether he should still go for the mega, whether he should try and stack up again, or if he should just push it, but then the time just forced him to go in, risk it all, and Dewey just held his own. Rocket jumped away in the final few seconds, and that was the end of this one.
But like you said, that's the end of it. So what do we really break away from that is that the two players are kind of playing the way we expected to see, where you have got nosfa, who I gotta say was showing a lot of respect to Dewey. He wasn't kind of just falling victim to a lot of these traps that Dewey likes to normally enforce. And he was being incredibly patient and careful. But as we now go into our next match, should be Strog versus the Nyx. Dooi with the Nyx, it does bring with it kind of a high risk, high reward, where a lot of players sometimes... Oh, sorry, actually, I might have had the wrong pick here. I was going by what they picked in the lobby, but we'll find out. So I think I have the world's worst memory, but I'm sure you've jotted it down.
It'll be nosfa running the Strog versus Dooi on the Sorlac.
I was half right.
Half right. You got one of the two, but yeah, still two pretty fast and mobile champions. On the map that is Corrupted Keep, can be extremely fast, small maps, lots of frags can snowball into each other. Dooi, I mean, this is a map where he just really has to hold his own, right? Because this is not the kind of arena in which you can play that playstyle of, okay, I've got a 1 or 2 frag lead, I'm going to leave the items up and play passive. Because if you do that, it's just too small. There's no way for you to hide that long. So Dooi will have to constantly contest and continue to apply pressure on his opponent, even in the later stages of the game.
So we're loading into Corrupted Keep right now, the absolute slugfest that can normally bring forth. And this is where we always have to talk about the stack differences, because it matters a great deal. You look at those larger champions like a Sorlag, and she's so dangerous on this map because it's not a simple matter of just having this constant string of momentum if, when Sorlag spawns, she has a stack that might even be higher than yours at the time. So you have to show a lot of respect. If Dooi is going to play the style that he's most familiar with and known for, that larger stack just makes it a bit more effective, I think. You can't bully him as much. You can play that game of just strong defensive positions. Bit harder to do on Corrupted Keep, because you're going to get found eventually. But we'll find out how this one goes, because, oh my lord, was that first map close.
Absolutely, and we're kicking things off on Dooi's perspective, running the Sorlac. He's got the air control and the stack, and it's immediately a brawl. Dooi pushing through the Peaker Pain as he pummels nosfa some more, but nosfa actually coming out better because he had the 2 health bubbles as well as a small armor to work with in that situation. Yeah, Dooi caught out a little too quickly before he was able to get any sort of stack advantage back. That is nosfa, the Brazilian Thunder, taking the first frag on this map.
And the immediate push away towards that Mega. Dooi trying to, at the very least, shut it down and deny it. Wouldn't have been a bad shout. nosfa wasn't crazy healthy at the time, so if Dooi was at least able to take that away, and then seeing as the heavy was up for the grabs, might have been able to even respawn the SSG side and take it. So the element of Corrupted Keep kind of playing for the next frag sometimes. But now, Dooi with lots of armor and every weapon he could want to push towards here and get a bunch of damage on deck. The acid, the final splat connects. This time Dooi was able to shut it down. The damage over time will trade the situation.
And the Peaker is such a risk factor on this map in particular because there is no railgun. And the railgun is, of course, the go-to tool to take down the robot, but hang on, those rockets are phenomenal. Dooi, rocket into Shoddy, get himself ever closer to his opponent. And that is the trouble that I was talking about. There's nothing in your arsenal that can easily and consistently take out the Peaker right off the bat, so you have to try and go at it with the LG or the machine gun, and in that time you're bound to take damage yourself.
Oh, nice little airborne. But he's been having some incredible rockets during this map, and it is doing a wonderful job of making it look like there pretty much is no stack difference between these type of champions. nosfa's damage has been impeccably good.
Yeah, if you take a quick moment to look at the damage output, we're only 2 minutes in and nosfa already has 650 points damage over his opponent, which is pretty obscene for this little playtime. He's lagging behind in terms of items though. All nosfa has had, Ketchup, is 3 mega healths. Everything else, including all the heavies, has gone to Dooi, who just lands an absolutely homing rocket, guided missile to the face, as nosfa drops a frag right there. Beautiful.
There was something just so incredibly sudden about that, wasn't it?
He just read it, he knew it, timed it perfectly, and then took his shot.
The defensive plays to at least, if not prevent, maybe funnel nosfa through a different area where it might be a bit easier for Dooi to get that damage. However, speaking of damage, he's quite tender himself. nosfa with the super shotgun, almost having dooi at death's door here. But with the mega spawning, nosfa's able to soak it up just at the right time. And he gets another frag on the board here for dooi, who has just been having a really hard time catching on, like where nosfa's going to be, or some of these items, perhaps.
For the people who think that dooi rather can only play those passive games, this should prove them wrong completely, right? If you see how aggressive dooi has been, sometimes even to a fault, pushing nosfa just before the mega spawns. There we go, gets it this time, but dooi absolutely isn't holding back, isn't playing passive. The LG is sick, but nosfa stays on the high ground and lands the beautiful rocket to finish him off. dooi has got the far better stack though. Can the Brazilian survive and restack? He doesn't have any armor to his name. dooi gets the LG, has got the super shotgun as well. nosfa caught in such a bad position and will drop a frag indeed.
Well, I remember talking to dooi about this, in particular, about the way he plays and his style, and the reality was that going back and coming out of competitive retirement, because remember, dooi, he was not in the Pro League when it first started, because he was at the time a retired competitor. He took a step away from competitive gaming. And when he came back, it was not the round-based duel that he had grown to become familiar with, because Champions was kind of like his big competitive entry to the Quake series. So he kind of had to come to grips with the time limit duel and the differences that it brings to the mode. I remember talking to dooi and him saying something along the lines, it was a long time ago, so I don't want to have it completely inaccurate, but he said something to me along the lines of, I have been more passive than I otherwise would, which is kind of saying a lot, but it was just while he is learning and reintroducing himself to the mode, he was actually more passive than he otherwise would be. And considering he is one of the most passive players, that was, a very, very significant area. But it kind of feels like the more he has become familiar with time limit duel and the more comfortable he is playing it in tournaments, and he's been in this for at least a year now. Yeah, he is starting to expand that style to become multi-layered, because the different styles is what you need at this level of play.
Coming out of retirement and playing Quake at the highest level. Name a more iconic duo, the LG. Keeping his opponent out of the room, but not long enough. nosfa looking to expand his lead. dooi, good defensive rockets, but it will be the Brazilian cleaning things up. 2 points ahead for nosfa, but we're only just past the halfway point. Plenty of room still for dooi to make a comeback happen. Similarly, nosfa, plenty of opportunity to extend his lead. dooi, though, making good use of that stack advantage. LG on LG. His shaft proved to be just a tiny bit stronger. nosfa, oh, that drop down. Oh, disastrous. Didn't read doi's movement and jumped straight down on it.
Another close exchange. dooi was narrowly able to close it, but still a lot of time for things to change here, Flea. I mean, just look at the fact that it's 3.5 minutes on the clock. That is a lifetime on Corrupted Keep.
Ooh, good. They're loving that rocket jump from dooi. I actually talked to him privately about his movement a fair bit. Man's got hopped, as he said himself. Loves the movement that Quake offers. See it quite often, and I like the speed boost he gave himself. He's got to be careful now. Switching to the shotgun already. Hoping to take down the peeker with one blast. Doesn't quite manage. Still takes a fair bit of damage and has to be careful now. Because nosfa is hungry for more.
And nosfa getting that from so far away. An impressive detonation in itself. But it's all about the consequences. nosfa, huge stack compared to dooi. The fact that the only item that's just spawned is a heavy that dooi can't even get close to, because there's no way he's going to survive, and nosfa falls into the trap, and he takes, I gotta say, considering what he just picked up, that was a substantial amount of damage.
Oh yeah, that was 2 or 3 spitballs to the face, as well as the point-blank super shotgun. Good rockets, dooi. Can he find the last one? No, nosfa actually gets bound up in the air, making him very difficult to hit, and he survives. dooi, this is risky. That's a very risky push when all you have is the rockets and your opponent has got the high ground. And nosfa indeed punishes him in turn. dooi still has time. He has to be careful. He's going too aggressively right now. Catch up. He has the time. 2 frags in 2 minutes. Very possible. He can't give up anymore.
Just looking at the items alone, there's not a massive divide between the two of them. nosfa, as you would expect going up against a heavy champion, has done more damage. forced to retreat. nosfa, can he escape with his life here? Any amount of delay he can put on this late on, at the very least taking the heavy away. Now he dies, but he dies at the right time. If he got that a second before, he wouldn't have been able to take the heavy. And now doi's looking to establish, gets another frag, but he's weak. That one time taking away the heavy has made things a little bit trickier, but nosfa constantly falling victim to just doi's traps, his position. He knows where he's gonna be.
nosfa has the stack advantage though, and he has a 1 frag lead as well. He's gotta be careful, can't show too much skin here. dooi, 7 points of health. nosfa knows this. Can the American get out? For the time being, he will be able to escape. Health bubbles are there to help him out as well. nosfa.
He's out of ammo!
Yeah, he clicked with the LG, unable to fire. nosfa actually surviving because doi's lack of ammo.
That's a tragic ammo loss as well, because he was only a couple of hits away from being able to finish the job. He just needed a second more. Now, plenty of ammo. Here comes the movement. Full speed ahead. Looked a little bit like nosfa might not have been prepared for it. He's out, but can he survive for 30 seconds? He's got no stack to his name, no armor. Oh, and he goes back into the rocket, dooi. Nearly perfect. Here comes the kamikaze. It's damaged, but it's nowhere near enough. Now nosfa's in the perfect place to run and survive. That corner is really hard to get a read on. And dooi find him? 10 seconds. Full speed ahead. It looks like he's not going to be able to find him. No idea. No idea where he is. nosfa. No, if dooi didn't hit that entryway, maybe for the last second you could find him, but with 1 frag in it, 2-1 is going to be the result. 10-11. The Blood Covenant was just as close. This is a close match. I'm having a good time with this one.
Absolutely. I think dooi just made a major misplay going for the Mega in the end right there.
Lost too much time.
He lost too much time, and that's just one part of it. The main problem with going for Mega right there is that you lose track of where your opponent is. While you're still keeping nosfa stuck into that corner area, the banana, right? You know exactly where he is. The moment you just jump away, you give him an escape route. He can run, he can hide, he can pick up some health bubbles, maybe a small armor as well. So dooi, in going for that Mega health, allowed nosfa so much freedom to get out and reposition himself in a more favorable spot. And I really don't even think that it was necessary either. Of course, it's easy for us to say because we can just see the stacks on the top of the screen, but dooi had such a significant stack advantage over nosfa that he really didn't need the Mega health to just push in aggressively.
Well, we're going into our final map anyway. Not much time left to reflect on it, and we have to concentrate doi's position. I'd like to see dooi take this win because of the preparation that he's put into it, but like I've said, with these two players, it's always hard to come to a decision because they're so close in skill level, and we're talking about success and results and everything else. But we are now going to see the Nyx. I'm sure I had seen the Nyx, I just couldn't quite recall the order it was on. Yep. But Anarchy and Nyx head-to-head on Awoken, so we'll see how this final map goes. You're going to stick true to your prediction? You think nosfa has this?
I do think so. Yes, I think it was a very close game. The first one, second one as well. nosfa, I think he can probably come out on top, but on the other hand, it is the Nyx. And Nyx works so well for dooi, so that might change things up a bit, because this champion just exemplifies the way that he loves to play. dooi takes damage, he pops that Ghost Walk, and he can get out, and he can reposition, and he can burn so much time from the clock to allow himself to continue playing that passive style. So, this is really a coin toss. It's very difficult to tell.
Part of me feels like the way this map begins might be somewhat of an indicator, because now Nyx and the way that dooi likes to play the Nyx, she can be highly effective, but if your Ghost Walk is used, it can sometimes just delay the inevitable because you reappear and you're still in a bad position or whatever the case may be. And if you can't really maximize the usefulness of the Ghost Walk, you're just playing a light champion with no ability, essentially. And that's where nosfa, with the speed and the injection, might be able to just have this unmatched advantage. But we'll find out. Neither player starting with their armor, so it will somewhat influence that decision you make at the very beginning. nosfa able to take that Mega, and he has a light of his own, shutting it down near the middle of the screen. dooi on heavy side, already prepared for nosfa to use that jump pad, and now only one of the 4 rail shots has actually hit its mark. That's a lot of potential damage left on the table. And nosfa.
And yes, indeed, nosfa unable to really do much in that engagement, but still outstacking dooi to a significant amount. I love how he maneuvered himself up the bounce pad right there just to peek over the edge. dooi unable to get the shot off in time. And now things have changed completely. Nosfa dropping down another nasty rail. dooi, this is a pretty good start.
But nosfa getting hit by so many of these rails. dooi is going to have to double back up there and get some more ammo. Not the end of the world, because it did allow him to at least get that information on nosfa. A rough idea over where he's going to be, but the rail flea, I can just taste that it's going to matter a great deal with 2 lights.
Yeah, indeed, this is a pretty fast start in comparison to some of the other maps that we've seen that were very slow burners. Now dooi, still firmly in the lead. But he has to be careful though, because look at how fast nosfa is just moving around the map. These reactive rails, so good. As nosfa just keeps racing around, dooi just cements himself in a good position and punishes any sort of transgression or unintended peek. Is nosfa ready for this?
Aggressive plays! That was not a defensive ghost walk at all. That was the heavy, just to cover your back, be invincible as you go through, and took nosfa completely by surprise. I'm so glad that earlier you mentioned that so many people think dooi is somewhat of a one-trick pony in playstyle, and especially now, like, that's just not the case. He has got it in him to make those aggressive plays, to do the brave stuff, to make these pushes that you'll never expect. But because you expect defense of dooi, when he does those kind of plays, you expect it the least against him, and it works.
This stack advantage is getting worrying if you're nosfa. The only item that nosfa has managed to secure has been 1 mega health, the one he spawned next to at the beginning. Everything else, including 5 heavies, have all gone towards dooi. And that is the reason why the Brazilian is struggling so much. Because even if he does manage to land some good shots, dooi always has more stack to fall back on.
Ah, the fake rocket jump. nosfa not going to fall for it because his eye was already on mega. He's going to take another item for himself at the very least, and that light armor might help him out considering injection is ready to rock. Maybe not. With a 100 damage rocket like that, forcing out the injection just to save his skin.
Death from above. That rocket straight down the top of his head. Beautiful place from dooi. And again, dooi just loves the center area. The T part of the map, he just sets up, forces nosfa to come to him, and he does the damage. Time and time again. dooi doing over twice as much damage as nosfa so far. And the Brazilian just really not finding solid footing.
A rather slow start here for nosfa. There's always time for him to make some kind of turnaround, considering this is Awoken, a very aggressive small map. dooi, the danger is that he's just been playing so incredibly well. Goes for the insurance policy ghost walk just in case he was going to eat a rail for that one. As long as he's picking up all of these hourglasses, he's in a good position. Catches dooi swapping weapons, but nosfa is quite weak himself, looking to push in. Actually chooses to go all the way, misses the rail. Both players so weak. Who's going to get the shotgun blast? How did dooi not die there? What happened?
nosfa got stuck in the corner trying to jump across. The LG pushed him against that tiny little pillar that sticks out of the wall, and he was unable to continue. Had to kind of drop back down, and then dooi was the first to switch to the shotgun and get the initial damage. 4-0.
I'm shocked dooi survived.
Yeah, he had no business getting out of his life right there. nosfa eating a direct rocket right there. Every single time he finds an opportunity, dooi is there to retaliate.
Yeah, he'd just seen nosfa. He knew that dooi had used the ghost walk. Fair to assume he was going to take the mega, which he did. nosfa using it as an opportunity to disengage and at least take the item and put the split in between the two of them, of which there isn't one. It's going to be what choices do we make here? Looks like he's going to try and make his presence known towards heavy, but the wall jump's going to allow dooi to get that mega completely for free, and he has all the weapons and ammo that he could want to make something from this stack.
And Dewey landed a beautiful rocket just before or just after the heavy was picked up as well. So that was completely free mega for him, but also dealing a good amount of damage.
Major
nosfa,
push.
though, yeah. Can he get the read? Can he find him? Dewey goes through a teleport. nosfa chases right into a rocket. The prediction once again. Dewey timing it expertly. I feel like nosfa's patience just seems to have ran thin in this map.
The thing about Dewey and his playstyle, Flea, is that when you play patient, you get used to player habits.
Yeah.
You get used to when someone's going to be aggressive or when they're likely to go through a teleporter. It looks like Dewey has nosfa's number in this map. Anyway, you were saying.
I think that nosfa is just, he tried too much to turn this into a fast-paced game. Just running blindly around corners, taking a lot of rail and rocket damage that was completely unreturned. Beautiful rail, though he needed to land that shot, but nosfa, now he really has to step on it. I was concerned when he forced out the speed or tried to force out a fast game towards the beginning, but now he just doesn't have the time. And shotgun, we all know it. Shotgun is one of Anarchy's greatest weaknesses. Now nosfa does manage to survive, should be able to secure heavy as well. Starting to build up some momentum. 3.5 minutes left. This is doable.
Looks like Dewey has sprung the trap and nosfa was not ready. Misses the rail, actually. That, by all means, could have been a frag. Rockets went all the way there. nosfa only having a rail in hand. That would have been a disastrous encounter. And Dewey, no rail. The lack of rail was going to change things a lot, I think.
And that's what I mean, Ketchup. Just nosfa just running, look, going up the bounce, but turning it right back around, turning corners blindly. And Dewey is just positioning himself so perfectly to do as much damage as possible, even steals away a heavy. Yes, nosfa has the better weaponry, but Dewey has got the stack. He's pushing in and actually gets the frag as well. Oh!
all right.
Okay, that's some spicy.
There's no need for it,
reactions.
Dewey. There's no need for it. All right, he's coming in with some more LG. nosfa taken out, and this comeback went from possible to very difficult now, especially after a rocket like that. 7 frags in not much time. Difficult ask here, nosfa.
nosfa tried turning it into a brawl. And if there's anything that Dewey is good at, it's dodging brawls and just counter-punching whenever the opportunity arises. Oh, look at those wild rocket jumps from nosfa, not going anywhere.
GG's right there, Flea. Dewey and the Nyx. We've talked about how it can really fall apart if the Nyx game doesn't work out, but with someone like Dewey, when it works, it is just taking Nyx to a completely different level. You know, an element of Nyx that only she can do for this game plan. Dewey has just perfected the art in this final map as nosfa. He has really struggled to deal with this pace. I mean, that was like 3 shots into, what was that? Like 290 damage or so?
Dewey's going to be very happy with this win today. It's his first one in this stage of the Quake Pro League. He's lost to Chain, Saigeb, Dehang, and Rafa, which are pretty clearly the top 4 players in NA that Dewey has had to go up against first. So it's no surprise that he hasn't managed to secure himself a win yet. But now, for the remainder of this stage, he has what are debatably easier opponents to go up against. And he's making a statement right here with nosfa saying that, okay, didn't get off to the best start because I had to face the best players, but now it's my time. And I'm loving what I'm seeing out of him.
Just a good performance all round. Not a dominant one, having to absolutely fight tooth and nail for it, but being able to show that level of resolve, you know, the ability to say, you are making this close, and we are going into that final map. But I'm going to play incredibly well on the final map, the decider. I'm going to get that win, and I'm going to show that I am multi-layered, you know, as a player. So many players in the community, I think, make the mistake of thinking that Dewey is just a one-trick defensive, and that's it, you know. But he really is so much more than that. When the time comes to be aggressive, he can be, but this kind of map was just a perfect Dewey game. Yeah.
nosfa calling the GG, leaving the lobby, and that will be Dooi using his trusty next to perfection and securing himself a 2-1 victory. As you mentioned yourself, this was not a clean victory. This was rough, this was dirty. He had to fight for it tooth and nail, but in the end, the American player did come out victorious. And nosfa, taking another loss. His season so far, he's beaten Maxter, he's beaten Dramas, but this is the 4th loss added to his record this time around. So I do think that he's going to hope for some improvements, because everyone knows that he can be one of the best players, the top dogs in NA, but he just hasn't been able to live up to it yet.
But even though we're a fair few weeks into the Pro League and this stage, these do go on for a bit longer in Season 2. So there is an opportunity here for Dooi to get back up on top into that level that we know he can play. I know you mentioned that he's had one hell of a lineup of competition to play in the first half of the stage, but now the time is coming where Dewey's going to be able to really put himself on that leaderboard a little bit and start getting those wins, the money, the cash, the placement, stuff that matters as we go into later and later, because you always want to avoid relegation, don't you? And Dewey's not the kind of player you would expect to be there. And if he plays like this in future weeks, I think he's got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. Clearly, Dewey's prep work helped him out quite a bit. Looking through nosfa's VODs, trying to analyze his playstyle, the man came in with a plan, was well prepared, and he managed to secure himself the victory. Looking back at the stats, significantly more damage. Look at that, 4.1k for Dewey against 2.7 for nosfa. That is quite something, and also more pickups for both of the major items. So that last map was definitely a deserved win for the American. Well played.
So, as always, as you expect me to say by now, that we have now hit our next series, and we're going to go to a break and set up our next matchup, which is going to be Chain versus Cygib. So that one actually promises to be most interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and we'll be joined by a special guest, as always. We're going to go for a break and set things up. You are watching Quake Pro League, and you don't want to miss our next few series. So, see you in a bit.